So, is it a $4 billion promise to power a nation's future, or is it a direct threat to the very lifeline of its neighbors? Today, we're diving into the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, one of the most ambitious and, yeah, one of the most controversial megaprojects on the entire planet, built right on Africa's longest river.
All right, to really get what this dam is all about, you have to first understand the tension that's literally flowing through the Nile itself.
Now, that was a personal promise from Ethiopia's leader, made directly to Egypt. It was a solemn vow, meant to calm everyone's fears. But despite those words, the diplomatic situation is still at a boiling point, and it's being fueled by decades of history and the very real, very stark reality of water scarcity. 4.9 billion cubic meters. This number, right here, this is a huge reason why things are so tense. That's how much water Ethiopia held back in the dam's reservoir during its first filling back in 2020. And here's the real kicker. They did it unilaterally. No final agreement. And that single act turned a technical process into a high-stakes geopolitical showdown. So that really is the central question, isn't it? The answer? Well, it's not just about engineering or how much rain falls. It's about deep historical grievances. It's about national pride. And it's about this fundamental question of who gets to control the flow of Africa's longest, most vital river. And this chart, wow, it just lays out the existential stakes perfectly. For Ethiopia, this dam is all about a national renaissance, a way to bring power to millions and become a major energy exporter. But then you look at Egypt, which depends on the Nile for 80% of its total water needs, and you realize that any change to that river's flow is a direct threat to its survival. So where does all this tension come from? Well, it's been building for nearly 100 years, rooted in what many see as a major imbalance. For decades, the politics of the Nile really only flowed in one direction, downstream. This timeline just perfectly captures Ethiopia's long-simmering frustration. Think about it. A 1959 agreement basically gave Egypt and Sudan total control over a river that starts high up in the Ethiopian highlands. So, for decades, while Ethiopia was struggling with instability, its neighbors were building their entire nations around the Nile's predictable flow. That 2011 announcement, it wasn't just about a new dam. No, it was a loud and clear declaration that the old rules of the river were about to change, big time. So, what was the big shift in 2011? Well, Ethiopia's leadership got behind this powerful new vision for the country. And right at the heart of it was a strategy to finally achieve something that had been out of reach for a century: energy independence. You see, facing some pretty severe crises in the early 2000s, Ethiopia's leaders saw only one real path to survival: massive state-driven development. The idea was that the country had to build its way out of poverty, and the single biggest thing holding it back was a crippling lack of electricity. And this quote from the dam's visionary, former Prime Minister Meles Zenawi, it just captures the incredible scale of this ambition. The GRD wasn't just another infrastructure project. It was a declaration of economic sovereignty. The ultimate goal was to become so self-sufficient that Ethiopia would never again have to ask for permission from international banks that had always been nervous about funding projects on the contentious Nile. So, and this is the really crucial point, to pull off that kind of independence, Ethiopia turned inward. That massive $4 billion price tag was funded almost entirely by its own people through this huge national campaign. By selling bonds and collecting salary contributions, the government basically insulated the project from the kind of foreign diplomatic pressure that had killed its Nile ambitions for decades. But, this massive national dream, driven by sheer political will, was on a collision course with the cold, hard realities of engineering and economics. Okay, so this table reveals a really fascinating and critical decision. Earlier plans, you see, were all about efficiency, a high plant factor, to generate steady, reliable energy. But the GERD, it was designed for something else entirely: maximum size. It was built for what's called peaking power, which means it has this enormous installed capacity on paper, but a really low plant factor. In simple terms, it's way less efficient at generating electricity consistently. So why do it, right? Why build a bigger, more expensive dam that's actually less efficient? Well, the answer seems to be that the GERD was designed to make a statement. The goal wasn't just to generate electricity, it was to build the biggest dam in Africa, a powerful symbol of Ethiopia's resurgence. It was a choice where national prestige, it seems, went out over pure engineering logic. And this relentless push for size and speed, it created this a cascade of problems. Planning was done in secret. A huge, key contract went to a military-owned company that got bogged down in corruption scandals, causing massive delays. By 2018, the whole project was in crisis, a situation that was so tragically highlighted by the death of its celebrated chief engineer. And that brings us right up to today. The dam is built, it's generating power, but the diplomatic foundation it's sitting on is, well, it's anything but stable. So the fight isn't really about if the dam should exist anymore. It's about who controls the tap. Ethiopia wants the flexibility to fill it up quickly and start making money from the power it generates. But Egypt and Sudan, they are demanding a legally binding deal that guarantees a minimum flow of water, especially during a prolonged drought, which for them could be absolutely devastating. And yeah, this just captures the deadlock perfectly. Years and years of talks with mediators from all over the world have completely failed. What is, at its core, a technical problem of water management has become hopelessly tangled up in national pride, historical baggage, and really deep-seated security fears on all sides. Ultimately, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is so much more than just concrete and turbines. It's a massive test case for the 21st century. It could become this incredible engine for regional cooperation and shared prosperity, or it could solidify into a permanent source of conflict. Its final legacy is still being written, reminding us all that in an era of growing scarcity, water is, and always will be, power.